What is up, y'all? It's your boy, 12-inch, coming at you with another video. This is going to be a guide on the museum, as well as a museum tier list. I thought this one was pretty self-explanatory when I was asked a few questions about it, but I realized that a lot of people had a lot of questions, and perhaps I'm just far enough away from early game to where I'm kind of out of touch for what people are wondering questions about and what people are looking for. So, with that being said, I'm just gonna kind of get into it, I think. If you like this type of content, please consider dropping a like, a comment, consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell if you guys are interested. If you guys like the type of stuff we do here and you guys are interested in coaching, we do public coaching for $35 a session on stream. We do private coaching for $75 a session off stream. If you guys are interested in that, go to the Discord in the description below, make a ticket, and just, the rest will be history. With that being said, we're just going to do a quick tier list talking about how much I like all of these. This is going to be my own opinions on the usability of them. Some people may use these differently, but this should be a rather standard list. Just if they can be used, they'll probably get a higher rank. If they can't be used, they probably won't. So a good example of that would be Ethelfled. So Ethelfled is I would say A tier. It's generally not something that people should always go for. But for example, if you have a Scipio 5551 and you don't have the sculptures for LC and your Mehmed is only like 5111 or something like that, and you have an expertise Ethelfled, it is not a bad idea to get a double relic Ethelfled to run as a secondary to Scipio. So in that case, a Ethelfled would be pretty good. I wouldn't consider it the best by any means, however, it's still very valid. The next one is going to be Richard. I think Richard is really good. He's a really solid PvE commander. Having more stats on him is always good, but he's not a primary combat march. So I'd have him in the B tier because it's usable. However, it's not one of the first things I'd go for. YSG, on the other hand, is awesome. If you are using YSG in any capacity, I would generally want this relic on him. Now, it's not the best one, so it'll be like low S tier, but this is something I'd want if YSG was one of my combat marches, and something I would definitely want if YSG was fighting with one of my archer marches. If he's not fighting with an archer march and he's a secondary to perhaps Scipio, it's something that you could consider delaying. Martello's pretty good. Damn, I know it's itchy as fuck. Martello's pretty good, but again, this is just something you generally want to use for like chaining or something like that, so he is usable, however, it's not something you want to focus on too hard. Mehmed, on the other hand, is something you'd probably want to S tier. Mehmed is probably one of the first double relics you want to get. Mehmed can be used as a secondary to Scipio, QB, Nevsky, you name it. Mehmed is awesome. You definitely should be double relicking him ASAP. He might be near the top of S tier. Chow Chow is really good. He's a usable thing. He's not something you want to use for fighting, but he's something you'd want to use full stop. El Cid, not really great. You don't really want to use El Cid at all. Alexander the Great, pretty good. If you have Alex expertise and you want to use him as a secondary to an expertise LC, love to see it. I mean, he could be used as a secondary to Scipio as well, and just does well. If you invest in him in KVK2, I don't think it's the best idea, but it's not a horrible idea. Over here we have Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, I have heard he is okay as a secondary to Scipio, I believe, but I just don't see why you do him over Mehmed. And for that, I'll put him in the C tier because technically he can be used, but by God, that's a tough sell. Over here we have Frederick. Frederick is basically never getting used, so we're going to put him in the D tier. Over here we have Minamoto. I think I'd put Minamoto actually in front of Mehmed. Mina is really, 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 really good. Minamoto is awesome. He is probably the single best relic in the game. I believe it's 65% of stats in total, and as soon as you get to Season of Conquest, or as soon as you get to KVK3, you want to double relic Minamoto and you want to expertise your Nevsky. Nevsky, Mina, absolutely banger of a march. Love to see it. Love to hear it. It really is that good. If you haven't done it, you should. Hannibal Barca, D tier. Probably enough said. I don't really have to talk too much about it. Mulan. Once upon a time, Mulan was usable as a secondary to Trajan. I think those days have long since passed, but maybe I'll put her in the C tier. I mean, it's not impossible to consider it. Charlemagne, D tier. Ragnar Lothbrok, D tier. Thutmose. I have seen Thutmose used, so top of C tier perhaps, but not often. Genghis Khan, D tier, you shouldn't be using him. Saladin. We could call Saladin, we'll say it's an A tier relic. I don't like to see Saladin in Season of Conquest, but I have seen him used, and I have seen him used well. If you're using Saladin, you use this relic. Point blank period. I wouldn't put it higher than the Ethelfled relic, but I mean, we all want extra stats, right? Nothing wrong with that. Over here we have Constantine. Yeah, we have Constantine. Constantine I've seen used as a garrison. I wouldn't consider him because generally I do mostly fielding. So if you're a garrison player and you use like Constantine Gorgo or Gorgo Constantine, something like that, I could see it being used. And if you use that, use him. So sure, A tier is fine. Then again, for me personally, I'm not using it. So perhaps that'd be an S tier for some people, just not for me. We have Pyrrhus. Generally, I'd love to never ever see Pyrrhus on the field if we can help it. I would have Woodstock the same way. Tomurus is pretty good. If I see Tomurus on the field, I'd want to see this on her. We'll call it top of A tier, perhaps. Well, I mean, she'd only be used by some whales that have like 3 or 4 archer marches. Maybe we'll call it Saladin is gonna see more play than her. We'll put it between Constantine and Saladin. We'll probably call that good. So this is the final tier list. Nothing too crazy here. This should be rather fast, rather self-explanatory. Minamoto is going to be the best one. Mehmed's going to be the second best. Yi Seong-Ye is going to be the third, especially assuming if he's on an Archer March. Alex is going to be the fourth if you can find some way to use him. Alex is a much better commander now than he was probably 6 months ago, which is super weird because Alex had strongly fallen out of the meta. But with the release of LC, Alex is, I wouldn't say a meta March. I think I'd rather have Gorgo LC than Alex LC, but it's not bad, right? Especially if you don't have Sargon and you don't have Gorgo, but you have Expertise Alex, he's kind of back. And being able to give him some extra damage and some extra stats, I mean, you know, right? I mean, we mess with that. We like that out here. Ethelfled, Saladin, Tommy, Constantine for A tier. I feel like this is all pretty well explained. Down here, we have Richard, Martel, and Chow Chow. These are all commanders that we just use for like chaining. If we have any use for them, then, you know, we want to get these. Down in the C and D tier, these are commanders that we're just basically never ever going to see used. You may see that my El Cid has been picked up, but my El Cid has been picked up because I like El Cid because I'm probably going to expertise him, and that's kind of about it. So, now that we have all this information and we know what kind of tier lists we're looking for, why are we looking for relics? So when you're looking for a museum buff, you're basically just saying, can I run this in a meta march? And it's usually used to transition your marches from KVK2 into KVK3, right? So again, this is why Minamoto is in the S tier, is because he is such a solid transition. So over here we see 30 and 30%. This makes him one of the best marches, like full stop, that you can have for the cheapest. Right, so even if you didn't have Minamoto beforehand, investing in Minamoto after you hit Season of Conquest is not a bad idea, because then you can go, or not Season of Conquest, Season of Conquest commanders, right? You can go, even if you wanted 2 cavalry marches per se, let's say if in the past you went something like Mina CC, Baybar's Pella, right? And you wanted to translate those legendary sets in, you could do something like Nevsky, Minamoto, and you could have maybe QB and Joan, right? And you could do that off the first wheel. Then you could set up both of those marches with, say, a Expertise Minamoto, a 5-5-5-1 QB, and a 5-1-1-5 Joan. All pretty good. That makes this an absolutely spectacular invest. Probably one of the first ones I would consider if you have any kind of cavalry T5 coming into KVK3. Another one I very, very highly recommend is going to be Mehmed. Mehmed is it's just too good. It's just too good. 30% health, 10% skill damage on top of the 20% attack and skill damage he already gives. He targets 5 guys. He brings you, you know, extra troops to the field. This guy's awesome. He just is so good. If you bought dailies at all, or you got lucky with gold keys, and you have him at like a 5-4-1-1, 5-5-1-1, he's really good as a secondary to Scipio. Run him as a secondary to QB. Run him as a secondary to Nevsky. Run him as a secondary to Boudica. I literally don't care. If you can fit this guy in your 5 March early game, he's just an awesome addition. Again, he shouldn't be gotten before Minamoto if you're running Nevsky Mina, but he is really good. Not a bad choice. Again, when we have this tier list, like we are talking about, oh, like this is S tier, this is A tier, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, you know, fit the marches in how you need them. If you don't need Mehmed II, if you don't need Minamoto, then you should be considering maybe going for something more usable. That could be something usable like Charles Martel or Richard or Chow Chow if you're doing chaining, right? Again, it's just based on how your account is, right? Another thing that we consider is YSG. I love YSG. I use this guy all the time, right? If you are using him as a secondary to Scipio, or if you're using him as a secondary to Nevsky, if you're looking for something a little more ghetto, That's totally fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. However, there's not a huge reason to double inscription him if you're only getting 5% skill damage, right? The 20% archer defense is really good if you have archers, but if you're not running him with archers, then perhaps you should look at another piece, right? And again, if you're doing something even more ghetto, let's say you have an expertise Nevsky, and you have Nevsky, Minamoto, double relic. You have, say, QB YSG, and then you have, let's say, Scipio Mehmed. Perhaps Mehmed gets the double relic, Minamoto gets the double relic, and YSG can just wait a little bit. Excuse me. YSG can wait until everything else you really need is done, unless you're using it as secondary to like Boudica or ZL or something like that. I see ZL YSG pretty consistently, and that march then would be okay to double relic. Again, usable marches like Richard, Charles, Chow Chow, you can just pick them up whenever, and that's totally fine. El Cid and generally anything else that you would not use in Season of Conquest, there really is no reason to unlock the museum. Alexander the Great, obviously a really solid pickup. If you're using him in a meta march anyway, like I'm using Alex LC, his relic itself is not spectacular. However, if I'm using him, I might as well, right? Extra stats, never hurt anybody. I would say as a big rule of thumb, relics are made to make your transition into Season of Conquest easier. So whatever you're picking up from relics, just make sure you can use it immediately. These relic coins in these exhibit coins and relic coins are going to bottleneck really fast. Especially if you're spending money on this game, you do not want to get in a position where you're buying any amount of these relic packs at all. Just make sure if you're spending money, you pick up your Minamoto immediately. If you're not spending money, probably consider picking up either Alex if you expertised it, Mehmed, Ethelfled, just one of these really usable ones to help you transition easier. These are just to help you keep up with people. These are just to help you keep up with people that have been in Season of Conquest for a long time and are not meant to be like a permanent addition. They are just to help you move on. With that being said, I don't think anything else is really too complicated about this. We talked about which ones are the best, when you should invest with them, what kind of pairings you'd be looking for, and other utility-based moves. Just be careful with your coins, and also make sure that you have a few extra coins on hand at all times, because if they release a new relic or a relic level 3 for something that you have relic levels 2s for, it may be tempting to just be, unlocking all of these extra exhibits. Like you see I have a bunch of coins, I could just unlock a bunch of extra exhibits. However, I'd rather save up, because if they ever release, let's say, a Guan Yu relic for Season 3 commanders, or if they release a Takeda or Attila or relics down the line, or like a level 3 Mehmed relic, right? I want to have the coins available in order to unlock that. And that's the way you should be thinking as well. Anyway, guys, that should be it for this video. Should not be too complicated. If you guys enjoy content like this, again, please drop a like, a follow, consider subscribing, leave a comment, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. If you guys like the stuff we do here and you want notifications for when we go live, or you want to contact me while I'm not live, you guys should go to the Discord in the description below, go to the role selection tab, and turn on announcement and stream notifications. If you guys want coaching, I do coaching on stream for $35 a session. I do coaching off stream for $75 a session. If you guys are interested in that type of stuff, make sure you form a ticket in that same Discord. If you guys want to help support the stream financially, please consider subscribing. If you guys want to help support the stream financially, please consider donating to the Streamlabs link in the description below. And if you guys want to send anything to the P.O. Box, it is still open, and the P.O. Box will also be in the description below. I want each and every one of you guys to have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you so much for showing up, and I will catch y'all later.